Benjamin Disraeli said, if you have ethics, nothing else matters. If you don't have ethics, nothing else matters. In today's Leadership Quarter, Jody Holland joins us to talk about 4 perspectives on ethics in the workplace today. And I love just the conversation about ethics, not just in the workplace, but just in general.
Absolutely. And I think that when you look at our world, you hear things all the time about how I'm going to be transparent and I'm going to be the leader that's completely honest and ethical and things like that. And I think a lot of people just don't believe that anymore. When you look at the way that ethics has shifted over the last 4 generations, you can see the specific shift points where we change from absolute to legalistic to situational, and now even to optional. And so those are the 4 perspectives I want to talk about. But I read a book one time by John Maxwell. The book was titled, There's No Such Thing as Business Ethics. And I love the core of that book because he said you're either ethical or you're not ethical. It doesn't matter if you're at work or not at work, in politics or not in politics. Ethics are ethics, and they matter in every situation.
You got it or you don't. Okay, so let's talk about the 4 perspectives, also, ALSO.
Right, so absolute, this would be what I saw as a lot of my grandparents' generation, the traditionalists and older generations, where they said, right is right, wrong is wrong, there's no variation, and it doesn't matter any situation that you're in or who you're with. You're always this way in every situation. And that kind of goes back to the book Ta Ethica, where it talks about how there is an absolute way that we are to carry ourselves, and you can't say something is ethical unless it's always ethical. And they kind of explained it from that perspective. So I love the concept of absolute ethics. I just don't know really any people that follow that. Yeah. I think that our world is so unique and so varied that it's really difficult to say that you will be one way all the time in every situation. So that's why we create laws and rules and standard operating procedures, and we create what I would call legalistic ethics. Some people would call this legislated ethics. We create a law that says you cannot do this, and therefore it will never happen again. Obviously, not everybody follows all of the laws. If they did, we probably wouldn't have as much to talk about on the news.
Right, and that would be a good thing.
Yeah, everybody would be like, hey, everything went great today, nothing to talk about. Right. So legalistic ethics is we create a rule, and then we know whether or not a person is a good person based on whether they follow the rule. If you follow the rule, you're ethical. If you violate the rule, you're unethical. Most people, however, follow the 3rd one, which is called situational ethics. And situational ethics, when you start looking at that, that is, let me look at the thing that I'm dealing with right now. It's wrong to walk in and fire people unless, and they'll come up with an unless based on whatever's going on in their business at that time or whatever's going on in that situation. So they look at the situation and then evaluate what is right and what is wrong. And that's what I think you see most of the time in corporate America is we operate based on the situation that moment. And so the ethics will shift based on moment to moment. The only one that scares me is optional. And the reason that scares me is because basically what that says is it's only wrong if you get caught.
Ugh. Yeah, that's not good.
No, and not to pick on anybody, but if you start thinking about some of the stories you've seen over the last 10 years in media, you see a lot of times where people, they only find ethical standards after they've been caught. They had no remorse, no regret, didn't feel bad about what they were doing until somebody figured out what they were doing. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I feel so awful about this. I'll never do it again. I understand truth now. Right. And that's when they become ethical.
Or the ones that, I mean, and we see this too in terms of that, of even as long as you don't admit it.
Right.
As long as you don't admit it, nothing happened. Nothing was wrong. You just don't admit it. Even though there's proof,
Just let it go.
Just deny.
Let it go. Yeah, I think that's probably a really good way to describe the optional.
Just deny.
If the glove does not fit,
yeah, there you go.
You must have quit.
All right, Jody, we appreciate it. You can find out more information on Jody and his leadership training and all of his books and tips at